something. I
know.
They're never clean.
They have to run. That's the only shot they have.
They do it for 82 games. We're about to find out.
He already has shown what he's capable of.
Did surprise me. I thought we were going to hang in there.
This makes me think that we do need to be humble.
I actually think you're the only one who deserved that beating.
Let's go. Woo! Syracuse show.
The takeover begins today, Bobby. The takeover begins today.
We don't get this opportunity often, Sherrod. No Jimmy, no John, no Noah.
Wow.
That's rare. So the Syracuse guys are running the show tonight, and we'll try our best not to talk about that Tennessee win last week. Instead, we're going to talk about the Celtics win over the Raptors, a good one. I'd border on a great one here, and I don't think the chat's going to agree with that, although the chat seems pumped up about them moving up to third in the East as we get started here. This was a tough one to gauge because you had this awful third quarter where they completely blew a 23-point lead. You end up down 3 at the start of the fourth, but that answer to me means more. The 2 threes by White and Pritchard, the complete effort by the starters in the fourth quarter on your 6th game in 9 nights. Mm-hmm. So I think given the circumstances, given that this is one of the better East teams you're up against here, and that this is a difficult road trip going up there, I love this game, Sherrod. What were your first impressions coming out of this one?
You know, I this was a game to me, unless you've been paying attention to what the Celtics have been doing and just how their season has been progressing, you wouldn't really fully appreciate the degree of difficulty this game presented from the outset. You're playing a Toronto team that had a great stretch of play, and they've kind of petered out a little bit. And you're the Celtics, you're coming in playing really good basketball with an opportunity to continue to move up the Eastern Conference standings in a year where there's no clear-cut favorite. And the Celtics, give them credit. They came out and they did exactly what they had to do to get this win. I thought Derek White was phenomenal. I thought this was one of his best games of the season. The way that he was able to control the action at both ends of the floor, whether it was shot making early on, which I thought he did a great job with, really big plays defensively, whether it's altering shots, blocking shots, drawing offensive fouls at the very end there. He did a little bit of everything in this game. And this was a Derek White that I think a lot of us thought we would see from the very outset of the season. It's taken him a little bit longer to get to this point. But when you start looking at what he's been able to do the last 3, 4, 5 games, this is the kind of Derek White that you were hoping to see if you're the Celtics and you were wanting to see this team exceed the expectations. And with them in that number 3 spot, there we say it, a legitimate threat in the East now. Not only because of where they are, but the fact that, and we've talked about this on previous episodes, they really haven't hit the soft part of their schedule. I mean, they played the Clevelands, they played the New Yorks, they played the Orlandos, they played all those teams at the top and have shown the ability to beat all of them. And at some point, they're going to start playing those middle to bottom feeders in the East. And if they're doing what I think you anticipate they will do, which is continue to play well, there's a much better shot at them finishing atop the Eastern Conference standings than I think anyone thought possible.
For sure. Who do you worry about right now? They beat Detroit recently. They beat New York, who, as I said on the show last game, that was the only team I looked at in the East and said, based on how that first one went between Boston and New York, you don't worry about them the way you did, or you would have worried about them more than you ended up doing so after they came back and beat them at home in the following game. So they've now shown against Orlando, all the different teams. They haven't seen Miami yet. I'm interested to see that one, as Winwood mentions there. But they've shown against any team in the East in particular that they can compete here. And this was another important box to check. You mentioned their struggles coming into this one, Sherrod, coinciding almost exactly with RJ Barrett going down. And they're a top-heavy team. They do have that great starting 5, and then it tails off with some younger, less experienced guys after that. But they did lean on their depth in this one and almost used the Celtics strategy against them of playing 10, 11 guys, tons of ball pressure. The benches are what swung the game in that third quarter in Toronto's direction. It was a rough night for Boston's. Toronto's came in and did a lot of good stuff with their defensive wings that they threw at Boston. So they endured an energetic effort by a team that plays hard-nosed defense, that throws a lot of defensive pressure at the ball handlers. Started to turn the Celtics over, even up that shot total a little bit in the third quarter there. And then they answer when it's starter, your best against our best in the fourth quarter there. And that's encouraging because that says a lot about the Celtics' key contributors. Jaylen doing it again after turning his ankle, it looked like a little bit right before halftime. White getting back on track, as you mentioned, and Pritchard and Cada giving them some good stuff as well with that starting group there. So this was a great test, and it's just another one that you check off the box here for this team. And it doesn't have to be perfect. You're not expecting a start to finish effort from the Celtics team, Sherrod. They just don't have that level of talent, that level of consistency through their lineups. They're going to have to endure some rough stretches in a game. It's about how they answer it, and they answered it in stellar fashion in this one. And we are the Garden Report here, getting going. Sherrod Blakely, Bobby Manning here. Want to give them a quick shout out as we get going here, but we're powered by PrizePicks. Go over there and use the code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. There's still some football games going on today as we record this. A big one tonight between, let's see, what's the night game tonight, Sherrod? I'll look it up right here real quick. Is it Tampa tonight? Oh, no, it's Kansas City and
Kansas City.
Yeah, so a lot of different guys you could draft your team for that one. Pat Mahomes, Pacheco, a lot of different guys. So we'll tell you more about PrizePicks in a little bit. But just a great answer, Sherrod, in this one.
It was. But the thing, and you touched on this a bit earlier, as far as like teams that they still need to be kind of on guard for and things like that. You mentioned Miami, and I think one of our viewers mentioned Miami as well. They've changed who they are, and yet they still have that Spoelstra DNA in them. So they're going to be a threat no matter what. And I think they've figured out some ways to be even more effective and efficient offensively. And they're playing with a little bit faster pace. So they're definitely going to be a team that will be in the hunt for things. But I'm still looking at Detroit, man. I had a chance to talk with Cody Davis of the Detroit News today. It'll be in the next episode of the Big 3 NBA podcast. But that Detroit team, they're just in a different space mentally than I think most people expected them to be because they're so young. They did what I think a lot of young teams do, and that is when you have a certain level of success, if the team is bringing a band back the next year, then they're going to be even hungrier. And that's what they came out this year doing. And if you look back at the last time they played Boston, the Celtics won the game, but there were so many things that were very atypical of what Detroit teams do. Jalen Durham did not play a particularly good game. Cade had 42, but pretty much it was Cade and no one else that showed up and played well. That has not been the case for this team this year. I think the Celtics, once they see them next week, they're going to have to play as good or better than they did the previous time and hope that Detroit plays a little bit off because Detroit, the biggest issue that they have is they're young. Duran is 22. Cade is in his early mid-20s. You start going down that lineup, and there's a lot of youth there, but it's super talented. And so I look at them and Miami as probably the two teams that, as we go deeper into the season, I look at them as probably the two biggest threats because those are the two teams that there's still, I think, a little bit of a gap between. New York can't win on the road. They've shown that. Cleveland has not. Cleveland has some issues that I think as the season progresses will kind of manifest themselves publicly, but something is not right with the Cavaliers and their team. In Orlando, it looks like once again the injury bug is going to strike them. And so you take those three teams, put them out of the mix to some extent as far as being head and shoulders above the Celtics. And now all of a sudden you've got a Boston team that is going to potentially play its way into a top 3, top 4 finish. Because
you're big on this, Sherrod. I feel the confidence just flowing from you, and I can't blame you.
But here's the thing, Bobby. The confidence is not as much as about the Celtics as much as it is the East is not nearly as good as I thought it would be.
And isn't that what we all said coming into this year in all our previews? We thought
the East would be weak. We thought it would be weak, but the East is weaker than I thought. And so the Celtics, to me, part of their ascension is because they're playing good basketball. But other part of it that we can't ignore is the fact that they're stepping across teams that are just basically playing dead. I mean, it's not like they're just absolutely playing lights out to beat these teams. They're playing pretty good, and they're doing the things that they're supposed to do, which is put yourself in position to win and compete. But that's not these teams that they're moving ahead of and past. They're not even doing that. They're not competing. They're not playing hard. They're not playing cohesive. And the Celtics, to their credit, are making those teams pay for what they're not getting done. And so, yes, they're definitely playing like they should be a top 3, top 4 team in the East. But the East and your seeding is relative to the conference, which is not very good this year.
Yeah, and you see Cleveland last game. They're in panic mode out there right now, trying to figure out, doing some soul searching after all these losses that they're going through. They lost to Golden State, sitting
Yeah.
all their starters on Friday. That was a scary watch if you're a Cavs fan right now. And there's injuries popping up on some teams. Giannis just went down in Milwaukee. It looked like Hero got banged up a little bit down in Miami. You're just seeing all this stuff happening around the conference every day that makes you a little more confident about the Celtics team. But it is about them too, Sherrod. Like they are to some degree running into teams almost every single night. And I hate to bring this up, but since we're going to keep it real, you have to mention it. They're running into teams every night that are missing a key guy, and this Raptors one's the latest with Barrett here. Obviously, there's still enough there for them to put up a representative effort, but as we mentioned, they lose 4 or 6 coming in, or now have lost 4 or 6 after he went down with an injury. So they are catching some breaks. You take advantage of breaks when you get them in this league, and the Celtics themselves have found ways to stay healthy. But they've also risen to a level now that makes you not only confident in the East being down and how you can take advantage of that, but how high of a level the Celtics team can get to here. And it's the offense lately. Again, in this game, the way they're able to manufacture offense when the game gets tight, when the lead's disappearing. They did start the fourth 0-7 there. But then Derek White gets the ball, and he's just running sharp set after sharp set. The offense ran through him for pretty much the entirety of the fourth there. He's running great pick and roll alongside Kada. And when you look at their rotation right now, we talked about this a little bit after last game. They know who they're playing and where they're going on every given night now. They entered this one 9-2 with the Jordan Walsh starting lineup. He comes in for another win in this one, even though he didn't have a substantial part in it due to the foul trouble. But that's a good look for you right now. Josh Minot still playing center off the bench. You're going small into that group. And that has certainly brought their defense down to earth a little bit from this awesome start they had to the year on that side of the ball. But they've decided, Sherrod, we're just going to be who we are. We're a smaller team. We don't have a ton of depth at that big man spot. Minot plays great offense at that center position, even though he's a little undersized for it. And we're just going to live with the downsides to that. You saw in that third quarter, they dealt with the downsides of that, saw a lead come back to earth. But it was still a lineup that could get enough baskets in the closing stretch of that quarter to stave off the Raptors comeback. There were a couple of nice makes closing the door on the third, and then into the fourth. With the starters out there, they're able to go just a little bit longer there. You know who you're leaning on any given night now. And that's not to say that Luka Garza is going to be sitting on the bench the rest of the year and you're never going to see Xavier Tillman again or any number of these guys who have been relegated here. I still think there's a chance you could see a number of those players down the stretch of the season. Sam Hauser closes this game after Walsh fouls out there. Ugo gets a little 2-minute stint. But you see it's going to be your 5 starters, Simons, and a little bit of Hauser, Minot, and Shireman, who's still getting his 5-6 minutes. And that's been your rotation for a week or two now.
Yeah. And it's a rotation that works. They're finding that with that particular group, they're able to pretty much do all that they want to do and give themselves a chance to compete no matter what the opponent is looking to do. I love the fact that the Celtics have been really smart about not allowing what has been, at the start of the season at least, a deficiency become an issue, become a factor. Even though they're not as big as a lot of teams, they're still not getting their heads handed to them on a night in, night out basis like we saw early on this season, particularly on the glass. Lots of different players are stepping up and contributing in that regard. And that's what you got to do if you're the Celtics. You're not built to simply have a 2 and 3 guy roster that carries you night in, night out. It has to be all hands on deck. And the one thing that I think is kind of getting lost in what the Celtics are doing is the way that all the players, for the most part, have embraced the role that they're given. You don't see too many guys trying to do too much. You don't see too many guys taking for granted what the opportunities they're given. Guys are coming out there and they're making the most of the opportunities they get. As we mentioned earlier, Jordan Walsh was in foul trouble. So Ugo got an earlier entry into the game than maybe he would have. Within, 10, 15 seconds of him stepping to the game, Jaylen Brown, I believe, found him on a corner 3 that he knocked down. I don't remember too many games where Ugo has gotten to the game where he looked to shoot so early upon entering the game. And guys are recognizing that, whatever role that you have, play that role to the best of your ability. But ultimately what binds everyone's role is impact. Whatever you do, make an impact. If it's knocking down shots, if it's deflecting passes, if it's defending, do something to make an impact. And that seems to be what every one of these guys is locked and loaded on wanting to do. No matter whether they're playing 5 seconds or whether they're playing 55 minutes, it doesn't matter. Guys seem to embrace what Joe Mazzulla is selling right now, and that is you get on the floor, you make an impact, and I don't care, you shouldn't care how long you're going to be out there. Your job is to make an impact in the minutes you're given.
Yeah, and I don't think it's any mistake that's Joe Mazzulla alluded to this earlier this year, that playing a deeper rotation, a bunch of different guys has allowed them to stay healthy. I think there could be some truth to that, as everybody around the league seems to be going down left and right now. The Celtics have reduced minutes for some of their key guys, and they've ramped them up a little bit in this one. But they've been able to stay healthy through that, and they've been able to survive these stretches of games that it's like you're playing 5 times out of 7 nights, or in this case, 6 out of 9 coming into this one. I think you have to emphasize that context in this one. Grandy said on the radio, I believe, during the game that they've been on a plane like 7 out of the last 10 days or something like that. So they've gone through these brutal stretches. I think they were 13 out of 22 to open the season. This was a rough stretch of extra games, extra travel to start. And then because of the stupid NBA Cup thing, and that's what I'm going to say at this point. I tried to get into it the first couple years. Bobby
was so damn looking forward to going to Vegas, and now he's like, "Nah, I'm good."
Well, just what this thing does to the schedule, Sherrod. We're sitting here every other day. We're jumping on planes in the morning because it's Washington, D.C. and Boston. Not to complain about the travel schedule, media stuff, but there's just such a condensed schedule for a week or two. And now look ahead at the calendar. You play on Thursday, you play on Monday, and then you don't play till following week. You have like 2 games over the next 10 days here. They're not back at TD Garden until next Monday. We're going to be sitting around all week this week. And the Celtics have a couple off days coming up here from practice. So I don't know what the hell we're going to do. And that's after our heads are spinning for a week or two with games every other night. The schedule is ridiculous, not only for we, the media, but the teams certainly too are probably like, oh, what are we doing? We're jamming a million games into a small stretch, and then we're just sitting around all week waiting for the NBA Cup to happen. I've hated that all 3 years that they've done this thing now, this week where there's just absolutely nothing going on.
Yeah, there's always this balancing act that we're trying to find between players playing enough games, getting enough rest, versus not doing that, where you're just kind of sitting around waiting. And the Cup is clearly the biggest disruptor to that whole plan of how you want to have your season go. But look, it's not going anywhere because it's to the point now where there's a segment of the NBA family that thinks this is a good idea. There's money involved. There's sponsorship involved. There are too many hands in this particular pie for it to just die. I haven't been a big fan of it, and I think what you're starting to see, certainly it's been the case up to this point, is there has been no correlation between success leading up to the Cup and success in the playoffs. And I think as long as there continues to be this clear distinction that winning a Cup is good, but it's not going to win you a title, there's going to be a clear and undeniable faction of the NBA fan base that is not going to like this, because every fan, if you put every fan on a lie detector test and ask them which matters more, NBA Cup or championship, they're going to say a championship every single time and be telling the truth. And as long as there's this, I think even if it's not real, but as long as there's this kind of image that winning a Cup almost guarantees you're not going to win a championship, folks are not going to get excited about that until someone does it, which I don't think is going to happen anytime soon.
Yeah, it was the Bucks last year. They beat the Thunder in it, so the Thunder did get there. It was a good game. And then the first year, the Lakers obviously won, and they ended up firing their coach after that Cup championship run. So, yeah, it hasn't earned those two teams too much here. Celtics haven't even gone to the damn thing at this point into year 3. So, I don't know. It was good for the Pacers that year, right? As they got going on their little run, made the East Finals after that, and then turned that into a finals run. So for certain teams, I think it could have some benefit. Maybe for this Raptors team, they're going to play the Knicks in the quarterfinals this year. I can't even remember who's on the other side of it. You know how big of a basketball hoop head I am, Sherrod. So if I'm not locked in and paying attention to what's going on with this thing, there's not a lot of hope for the casual fan. So Oklahoma City's in it. The Lakers are in it. Phoenix, I believe,
Phoenix.
who's a bit of an upstart. We'll pull up the bracket, but that's all we got to say about the Cup. Celtics aren't going to be in it. They're heading to Milwaukee on Thursday, but we're going to keep talking about this Raptors game for a little bit here. Some news going on around the league per usual, but we're going to keep it pretty Celtics heavy tonight. But first, let's give a shout out to our sponsors here, PrizePicks, the best way to play daily fantasy. And now that it's the holiday season, there's so much going on. There's never a lack of excitement over there at PrizePicks, but this is one of the cooler times of the year where you have bowl games, basketball matchups happening every night, playoff pushes. It's all happening at once. While you and I are out here making decisions every day, what gifts to buy, what to eat, which game to watch, there's one place where it feels good to be right, and that is PrizePicks. And there's so many ways to play over there too. You got the stacks where, for example, you could stack your team with Steph Curry's points, 3-pointers, assists, multiple stat types for one player is how you play a stack here. Early payouts, if you feel like your team's doing great, you can do an early payout. Injury reboots, so if your lineup gets hit by an injury, you're still able to cash out in that circumstance. I love the flex play where you can cash out even if your lineup doesn't win. There's a million different ways you can play over on PrizePicks, but the simplest way to explain it is you just pick more or less on at least 2 player stats, and if you get your picks right, you can cash in. Get in on the action now in 45 states. You got the stack feature, which I mentioned. All withdrawals are fast and secure, and they are America's #1 fantasy sports app. And I'll say this too, as the fantasy seasons come to a close here. Some of you probably got derailed by injuries. Some of you picked terrible teams, or you just lost in the playoffs and you want to keep the fun going with a fantasy team each week for the football season as it winds down here. PrizePicks allows you to do that by picking a new team every week. That's my favorite part of the app. So download the app today. Use the code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. So let's get back to this game here. Let's talk Jaylen Brown, Sherrod, because we haven't mentioned him a ton here. But as great as Derek White was here, and White's getting his season back on track, Brown's just keeping it rolling and making it look casual. The three's falling now. He hit a couple of threes in the late stages of that Lakers game. Keeps it going with 3 or 4 3-point shooting in this one. He's quietly getting to the line more since that Cleveland game after, he had his complaints about the officiating the night prior to that. I believe about 7-8 per game since then. 9 in this one, rebounding more, facilitating. The guy's doing it all. And I wrote this morning, Sherrod, or yesterday rather, he's not in the MVP race per se, because that's just Shea and Jokic. But this guy, if he continues to do this, is going to be in the MVP conversation for the 3rd, 4th, 5th spot right now. And he doesn't have the stats, although he's getting there with performances like these. For him, it's going to be the availability, playing every single night. It's going to be the narrative, no Tatum, leadership, all the different things you can say about his contributions to the team off the court. That's going to have to be part of his conversation right there. And then more and more, you didn't think this was going to be part of his argument, Sherrod, but the Celtics record. If they're a top 1, 2, 3 team in the East, that's going to be the headline on his argument for MVP, alongside the fact that he got them through the year without Tatum.
Yeah, as you mentioned, Shea and Jokic are the 1, 2, depending on what your flavor preference is. One is 1, the other one is going to be 2. And after that, it's pretty wide open. And if Jaylen is able to continue to put up the kind of numbers that are, MVP-esque numbers, I mean, if he's averaging close to 30 points, 5, 6 rebounds, 5, 6 assists, and they're winning, he becomes a very, very viable candidate to finish among the top 5, but he won't win. The Jokic and Shea they've got those two top spots on lock. But it says a lot about just his ability to just basically show what he's done a lot throughout his career, and that's just kind of block out the white noise. This is a guy that was drafted the 3rd overall pick and was booed.
You love this story.
and so he understands the importance of just, frankly, not allowing all the external factors and sounds and conversations to affect what you do between those lines. And there's no question about it. He has been one of, if not the best player in the Eastern Conference this year so far. When you look at his scoring, you look at the statistical things that he's bringing to the game. But now, Bobby, as you just alluded to, he's impacting winning in a positive way. And that is always one of those factors that can quickly elevate someone from, yep, you're kind of in the middle of the pack to, oh, he should be near the front of the pack. And Jaylen, again, if the Celtics continue to play their way up the Eastern Conference standings and Jaylen continues to be a major part of that, you're going to start seeing more and more conversations about, who are the top 5 guys in the MVP conversation, and he's going to be one of them.
Yeah, and you've seen a lot of vote Sherrod. You know the people who vote on this thing year in and year out. What is is it the stats? Is it a team's record? Is it the narrative? Like, what is the biggest factor you feel like in getting a guy into that conversation? Because obviously before Friday, he wasn't even on that NBA ladder that they do every week, the top 10 names in the conversation. So we're talking 3-4 days now that he has entered this conversation.
Yeah, I think winning is the one factor that will get you in that conversation faster than anything else. Because if you're putting up 35 points a game and your team, is winning 35% of his games, then no one is going to care. And if you've got a great story, you've overcome X and Y and Z, and now you're one of the better players in the conference. Yeah, it sounds nice, but that's not going to move the needle significantly. It's, can you be seen as a winner? If you are someone who's considered a winner, that is going to give you the best shot of being in those conversations. And now to me, Jaylen, what he's doing, he is checking off, to me, I think the 2 most important boxes. What do your numbers look like? And is your team winning? Because if you're able to do both of those things at a relatively high level, you're going to be in a conversation. I don't think it's a coincidence that Jokic, if Denver were a sub 500 team, or when they were perceived to be not that great, he wasn't exactly didn't roll off the tongue of folks when they talked about MVP, even though he had great numbers. But when they started winning at a high level and when they won a championship, it became much more of a no-brainer. And the same thing with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He puts up good stats, but it's his impact on winning. It's the way that he's able to lead the best team night in and night out. That's going to get you in the conversation. And for Jaylen, for him to keep the Celtics not just afloat, but actually soaring, you've got to start thinking about him at some point sooner rather than later as someone in that top 5 MVP conversation. He's earned it.
Yeah, and I agree with you on the winning stuff. Like that's minimum. Like they're gonna have to be one of the best teams in the East for him to get into the conversation. And then once you get there, what are your stats? What are your analytics? That's a lot of it now. And the voters I see, the debates that we have each year, that always comes into play where they're pulling these stats like LeBron and EPM and all that kind of stuff. And unfortunately for Jaylen, for whatever reason, I've never really been able to figure it out. My best guess is that he takes tough shots and isn't a big 3-point shooter and has played weird rotations alongside Tatum along the years. Like his analytics aren't great. And even this year with no Tatum, the Celtics have been better technically. Maybe there's some garbage time at play here or whatever. They've been better plus 11 per 100 with Brown off the floor compared to +4 when he's on the floor. Now, the offense has been better when he's been out there, and I think that makes sense. But you don't really have these numbers that you can latch onto, Sherrod, that say he's one of the most valuable guys in the league. In fact, when you look at those analytics, and again, this isn't any judgment I'm making on Jaylen here. I'm just saying what the facts are. Derek's ahead of him in a lot of those analytics stats. Pritchard even has snuck ahead of him in some of those, advanced analytics. So voters use those. Voters look at those. Maybe guys who don't watch or voters who don't watch every Celtics game or all the games around the league rely on those at least to help them out when they're making judgments between different guys. And that does end up hurting Jaylen in a lot of these awards discussions. I mean, he still only has one All-NBA to this point. Last year, it was the health that hurt him. So the numbers aren't going to help him this year. It's going to have to be, look at what he did without Tatum. Look at how great that Celtics team is when no one thought they were going to do anything. It's going to have to be, he played in 70, 80 games this year, and his availability was crucial to this team. And it looks like he's on his way to doing that, barring some health issues down the line. Has only missed 1 game so far. And then obviously some of his competitors could be eliminated through the 65-game rule that's in place now. It looks like Giannis, who's going to miss the next 4 weeks here, is more than likely probably going to be knocked out of the MVP race this year if he misses more time beyond that. So there's some stuff going for him right now, and that's why I'm excited. Like, listen, we're 20 games into the year, and MVP conversation is probably a little premature right now. But there's enough going for Jaylen as you start to look ahead here and say, let's say all this stuff continues, this productivity, this level of winning by the Celtics here, and this level of importance of him in it. He's going to be up there, like where Cade is right now, and where Luka is, just behind that Shea Jokic argument, and that's incredible for Jaylen. And forget all NBA, he's a slam dunk for that with where things stand.
Yeah, he is. And the one thing though that of those players you mentioned, the one thing that they all have in common is that they have been the undisputed leaders of their teams. And they've led in their own way. They've impacted the game in a significant manner. And that's not to say Jaylen hasn't, but he's done it for the most part in his career as the sidekick guy, the Robin, if you will. And this is the first chance where he has had to have basically run the show himself. And they're playing
and
really
he
good
has
basketball.
downplayed that, Sherrod, which I think hurts him a little bit. He came into this year saying, oh, this year's not about me proving myself, showing what I'm made of. I'm just trying to make good plays. I'm just trying to do the right thing there. And I do think, we're the storytellers here. We're the ones who got to, put this narrative out there when it comes to what someone deserves. And I do think he deserves to be part of this conversation right now. So, I'm stressing the fact that he's making the right play, setting other guys up, getting others involved. That 42-point game that Pritchard had in Cleveland, that was all Jaylen setting him up. The 0-4 start, I keep telling this story, or the 0-3 start, they had a rest night lined up for him in New Orleans, back to back. Easily could have sat that one out, but he guts it out, plays, helps them win that first game of the season. And all they've done is win since. I feel like, we got to tell the little things, the little stories of the things he's doing this year that have allowed this team to be as consistent as they've been, because I've thought about this the last couple of days, Sherrod. If you're going to rank the top 3 reasons that they've been successful this year, I'm probably going 1, Jaylen, 2, Joe, and all the coaching things that he's done. And then 3, I'll probably go their depth and their versatility and the defensive pressure, just lumping all those things into one barrel right there. So I would say Jaylen's been the biggest reason that this team has exceeded expectations this year.
Well, he has, and he's been able to do it in a couple of different ways. First and foremost, just his impact as a scorer, I think, is evident. But more importantly, I think his impact as a on-the-floor leader, someone who can do more than just score. Because that's when people think of his leadership, they think, oh, he's just going to go get points. But his ability to facilitate, his ability to rebound, his ability to defend, he does everything that you want your best player to do, and he's doing it night in and night out. He missed one game this year. And as far as bad games outside of missing a game, I don't know if he's had more than maybe 2 or 3, if that many, where you could look at him and just say he had a bad game.
That Knicks game early, yeah. I can't even think of the other one. It's like 1, 2, or 3 maybe.
Yeah, but it's been a very small number of games where you can look at and say, yeah, he probably really didn't have his best stuff tonight. That didn't.
We know it stinks for him too. He sits out that, and it's Washington, right? He sits out that Washington game, and they win by 45. I'm sure that didn't help his on-off numbers.
No, but you know what? And that there's some of those stats that, as you mentioned, it can be a bit deceiving when you look at that particular game is one that just an outlier of all outliers. When you talk about this team, but bottom line is he's getting it done. He's getting it done. And whether he wants to admit it or not, whether he wants to acknowledge it or not, these are some very atypical times for him and the Celtics team. And yet the one thing that, even though the lineup looks different, even though his role is different, the one thing is relatively the same, that is they're winning. And he's a big, big, big part of that.
He is. And I think we gave him, this is a record Jaylen segment, I think, in terms of length on this show, Sherrod. As you know, we don't talk about Jaylen.
I wonder why we're talking so much about Jaylen Brown, the best player on the team this year.
You would have thought he went to Syracuse, not Cal, our ACC rival right now, the way we talked about him here. Let's get to some other performances from this one. We can talk about Jordan Walsh, because this is another start for him. He did foul out of this one. I loved where his game was going early here. Pressuring the ball. The same story, right? And, 5 minutes into this game, I felt like we were going to be talking about the fact that he was a key contributor to this game, the way he pressured the ball and got on the scoreboard early and was just all over the place in terms of the Celtics building that early lead here. And I couldn't believe it, but he just committed some bad fouls, got out of the game, got out of the mix. He had a stretch that I didn't love where he forced a mid-range shot and, had a bad foul the other way, and then ends up fouling out of this game with 2 quick ones. I think Scotty Barnes lined him up and gave him his 6th right after he got his 5th there. So, not that this was super disruptive to the game and how it ended here, and obviously they still end up winning this one. He fouled out with about 2-3 minutes left, but after some massive performances against Washington, carrying that over to the Lakers game, it looked like he was going to carry that forward here and have 15, 20 points again, potentially, but ends up seeing his field goal percentage drop a little bit, doesn't play the full game because of foul trouble, and just a small step back for him from what's been a career week here. I mean, I think his field goal percentage over the last 4 coming into this one, Sherrod, got up to like 23 for 26. I mean, he was just on a ridiculous offensive tear.
Yeah, but the one thing that we're seeing in real time, and Jordan is experiencing this in real time, this is what happens when you become part of the scouting report. This is what happens when you play well enough to where you're no longer seen as just kind of a guy that's just kind of basically filling a void or just taking up space. You're now someone that there's a concerted effort to figure out how to make you a non-factor, because it's pretty clear. He is a guy that if you allow him to get comfortable, can make you pay. He's got so much more comfortable with his jump shot. He's getting into the passing lanes. He's defending the best player and defending them with a certain amount of reckless abandon, but very precise with what he's looking to do and accomplish. And he's being able to play freely. Guys are going at him, but they're not really going at him with the focus of getting him off the floor. And I thought Scotty Barnes did that in this game. I thought Scotty went at him trying to get him in situations and positions where he's going to have to be more physical and hopefully, in Scotty's case, get some fouls called. And Jordan didn't help his cause by committing a couple of silly fouls. So this is what it's going to be like for Jordan Walsh going forward. And again, he's going to have to do what all the really good and really great players do, and that's adjust and adapt. Figure out what can you do to counter what they're looking to do. You see a lot of guys coming to the NBA who are great scorers. In their first couple of weeks, they look like they're bound for the Hall of Fame. And then they're on a scouting report. And then teams start breaking down film. And then teams start realizing, well, yep, they're really good at this, but they're not so great at that. Let's see if we can do a little bit more of that and see if they can make the adjustment. And I think Jordan is going to start seeing more and more of that approach to teams when dealing with him. I think you're going to see teams defend him differently and try to make him, do some things that he's not necessarily comfortable or consistently doing. And they're going to try to get him off the floor because he's a problem for teams. His defense is becoming a problem for opponents. And you got to get him off the floor. And I thought their wings did a good job of just kind of making Jordan as much of a non-factor as we've seen Jordan in a really, really long time.
Yeah, and not a complete non-factor here. I thought the early minutes were good, and he's still finding ways when he's on the floor to make an impact. And one of the chats here said it. I actually don't disagree with this, that fouling out doesn't matter a ton for him, especially with the fact that he got to the late stages of this game. If it happened early and he took himself out of the game, fine. But he does have 6 to use. And so if you can keep it to 3 or 4, if you can keep it to good ones that aren't, and ones or in the bonus or putting you at the free throw line unnecessarily, I think those are the ones Joe will accept. And he has said as such this year that there's certain scenarios you want to not foul in. But overall, the chance to force a turnover has been worth the risk of a foul, as Joe's described it. So it's not bad basketball to be committing fouls as Walsh has here for a lot of this year. In fact, that's his job. And as I've said, coming out of college, that's what he did. He was a guy who was willing to risk a foul or two to make an aggressive play. And obviously he gets 3 steals in this game while fouling out. So I actually think Joe, if we were going to ask him after this one, would like the intensity, the aggressiveness that Walsh played with getting there. It's just a balance. And I'm sure there was 1 or 2 here that wasn't the smartest for him. What I love just though, Sherrod, especially in the early stages of this game, it's not like he's just, I said this on Twitter or a chat thread, I forget which. It's not like he's just running around garbage man. I know they try to call him that, right? I guess it's Alcatraz now on the NBC broadcast. It's not like he's just running around with his head cut off, making crazy plays, fouling guys, and he's just this energy guy off the bench. The last week or two has been a revelation for me because he actually looks like a good basketball player. And when I was watching him in the opening minutes of this one, I had the thought of, wow, the Celtics found their Pacers version of Neesmith here. There was a Celtics version of Neesmith that was that guy with a head cut off running around crazy. But this Walsh here is closer to what you're seeing Neesmith do in Indiana, where he's knocking down shots, where he's finding a role offensively, and he's a steady fifth contributor in that lineup. He's bringing that defensive impact and that energy, the rebounding. We lament so much the fact that the Celtics drafted Neesmith, tried to develop him, didn't work, cast him off, and then he was a part of a great team in Indiana. It feels like they made up for it, at least early on in his development now, in his playing time, by having this full-fledged role for him. Like, I don't look at him as an energy guy right now, Sherrod, with what he's doing recently. I look at him as a really good player.
Yeah. I mean, he's showing an all-around game that I don't think any of us had enough, frankly, sample size to see could come about. His ability to defend, his ability to knock down open shots, the ability to be a help side defender. If teams are looking to get out and score in transition, he's shown the ability to block shots from the backside and just be disruptive. Those are the things that energy guys don't do. Those are the things that guys, particularly young guys like him, he's only 22 years old. Young guys are trying to develop into being all-around players, and all of the skills that they have are not going to all develop at the same time. But there's a clear, undeniable reality to Jordan Walsh's game that he's getting better in real time. Every part of his game is growing. His court awareness, his ability to score off the dribble, finish at the rim, knock down threes, defend the best player, rebound from his position. There's nothing about his game at this point that you feel has kind of leveled off. And so when you've got a young player who is spiking in all those different areas, you don't have an energy guy. You've got an NBA player. Right now, Ugo is more of an energy guy because Ugo, when he gets in the game, he does a really good job defensively, but he doesn't have the same, I think, level of locked in focus and impact that we're seeing from Jordan. But if Jordan goes out of the game and then you bring in Ugo, defensively,
I'm glad you said that.
You're not getting a big difference. And that's what you need. You need an energy guy. And Ugo has established himself as that. Jordan has established himself, I think, as being better than an energy guy. And that's what the Celtics need. That's what you want in your starting lineup. Energy guys are great coming off the bench because coming off the bench means you're going to give them a burst for 2, 3, 5-minute stretches here and there. That could be the difference in you winning and losing. But if you're a starter, your best quality should not be your energy. It should be part of what you do, but not the totality or a significant part of what you do. And the more we watch Jordan Walsh, it's clear that while playing with great energy is definite key to his success, his defense, his rebounding from position, his ability to knock down open shots, all those other things that you want to be an all-around NBA player, he's getting better and better seemingly every day in those areas.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you say that, bringing up Ugo there, because that's the beauty of it. And I think you're right, too, about the responsibility Walsh has now as a starter. Scal was saying it during the game, and I think it was well said the couple of times you brought it up, where it's like, all right, when you're an energy guy coming off the bench, you can make that foul. But now you're being relied upon to stay on the court. You're being relied upon to play consistent possession to possession. There's not a leeway to be on and off. We talked about this with Keita when he went from a bench guy to a starter to being this year. There's a consistency factor you have to play with when you're being relied upon to that degree. The beauty, though, is that you do have a backup plan if Walsh is in foul trouble or he has a bad stretch where Ugo's fresh. He comes off. He does a lot of the same things. And 2 minutes in this game, he hits a couple shots, makes a couple defensive plays. Boom, you're off, and Walsh is on again. It's been such a luxury to have that behind Walsh, where you almost have this backup version of him. They're very similar players. They're doing similar things. We'll see how Ugo's offense develops in a bigger role eventually. But right now, you bring him into this game for 4 or 5 minutes. You bring Shireman into the game for a handful of time, and they're doing great stuff here too. So we are talking about Walsh as this revelation right now, Sherrod, but we stressed it last show. if 10, 15 games from now, we're talking about Shireman in this position starting and doing all this different stuff, or Ugo continues to expand his game into the second half of the season and he ends up taking a more sizable role. Like, we were doing backflips over Minot as a starter through the first 10 games or whatever. I'm not totally ready to say that Walsh is going to be that staple in the rotation, that starter for the next 60 games here. I don't think we have enough proof of that, enough of a sample size to say that's absolutely going to be the case. What we do know is that if he doesn't perform well on any given night, he's going to be on the bench, and it's going to be Hauser, Shireman, whoever. There's so many options that they can go with, so many directions that they can go in there. And that's the beauty of this team. I didn't believe Joe in training camp. He said the depth, the lack of a rotation was going to be their strength this year. It sounded a little silly. It sounded like him manipulating that narrative a little bit, but that has absolutely been the reality of this team.
Yeah, I mean they're built differently than any other team, and they lean on each other. They don't have the ability to where one guy can carry them for long stretches. And yes, Jaylen Brown is an All NBA player, and he's shown the ability to do that from time to time. But for them to be a great team, they have to be a team. They don't have the individual talent that we've seen in past years where you could go to Porzingis, who can put you on his back for 10 minutes, or Drew Holiday or Jason Tatum. Those guys aren't walking through that door to play anytime soon. And so you got to figure out, well, who are we? What can we do? And how can we do that to the best of our ability? And that's what we're seeing out of this team. They're going to beat you in waves. They have the ability to have multiple guys at the same position do some things. Kata, I think, has been just, incredible this year with just the way that he's been able to impact. And Jordan, the fact that Jordan was plus 12 and played a ton of minutes, he's going to be all right. And the Celtics are going to be all right. And Jordan is going to, I think, continue to be. He may go back to the bench at some point, but I don't think he's going to be leaving the rotation anytime soon. Because what he brings to the table, I just don't think they have guys who can defend as many top flight scorers the way he can. I mean, watching the NBC broadcast, and Abby Chin had this great graphic looking at just some of the different matchups that Jordan Walsh has had and how he's been able to really stymie some incredibly effective, high impact scores. When you have a guy like that, you're going to play him. Whether he's starting, coming off the bench, he's going to play. And I think that's the thing that Jordan Walsh is showing now. I said from the beginning of the season that I felt this year for a lot of players was going to be like Hunger Games. Not everyone is going to be around at the very end. And so what are you doing to make sure you are? And you look at Jordan Walsh, I think he's doing exactly what you're supposed to do when you're given an opportunity that many don't understand why was given to you. And that is make the most of it. Show why you belong in that starting lineup or with that rotation so that when they do make changes, your role in terms of playing might be tweaked, but it won't be eliminated.
It seems awesome right now. It's a lot of fun. John's fired up. You heard him last game saying how much fun he's having. He didn't even want to watch this team this year, do this show this year, and he's bought in. He's enjoying it more, and I think he's starting to believe a little bit. I think we're all being convinced to some degree that this team could be for real, could be representative of what they're doing record-wise. And recently, 0-3 to start the year. They are now 15-9, I believe, after 5 straight wins here. So they have now won, Sherrod, 15 of their last 21 games, 5 straight, 8 of their last 10. And you're suddenly, as the Celtics, third in the East, a half game ahead of Toronto, who you beat tonight. You are a game and a half back of the Knicks, who you just beat, who are playing well themselves. They've won 3 straight since they lost to you. And you are only 4 games back of the Pistons, who you just beat for the 1 seed. And I do think that Pistons team, as you mentioned earlier, is in a class of their own at the moment with how they're playing, but you're not that far off them. The Knicks, you're right behind and show that you can compete with them. Detroit's back here in Boston on Monday, so you have another shot at beating them. And then obviously you have a trip to Milwaukee where they're going to not have Giannis on Thursday, which should be a manageable one. So the winning's going to continue here potentially, and you get off your feet this week, which is nice. But there's some more tests coming. That Detroit game I mentioned, you're going to play Miami for the first time next Friday. Another trip to Toronto the following night. So you're going to be you're going to be up there in Toronto again on a back-to-back. So this funky schedule continues here before your first West Coast trip of the year later this month. But at the moment, they are 100% absolutely fitting in that third spot in the East. It doesn't feel like a fluke. Doesn't feel like they're not deserving of being there. It doesn't feel like they can't be there by the end of the year. But I'll say this, Sherrod. If I was going to list two concerns here, and I've said them throughout this start because I don't want to fully, dive all the way in here given the circumstances. They've been fully healthy. Their health has been impeccable. And when they lose a key guy, inevitably for a week or two here, how do they hold up through that? Credit to them. They've won a game without Kata and Walsh, or without Kata and White. They've won a game that Detroit won without Kata. And then they won that Washington one without Jaylen Brown. So they've shown in three different circumstances that they can win with key guys out of the lineup. So that's a nice answer to that question as we start to get some more results. And then my other question is the sustainability of the way that they're doing this. Max effort, max intensity, max focus every night. And that's a minimum. Like Joe has even said it after that Brooklyn game. If we don't show up with that level of intensity and focus, we can lose to anybody. So that has to be there. The shot making, which again in this game, incredible. We didn't mention it, but they shoot 43% from three in this one on 47 attempts. That was a big part of the way that this game went. Derek's shooting, Peyton's shooting, Jaylen's as well. So this team's always going to be great when they're shooting 40% from three, and they've been doing that more often recently. So the sustainability of that offense, all the mid-range shooting that they're doing, never going to the free throw line, never cutting, never running. They never make it easy on themselves. So my point is, Sherrod, the way that they're winning right now is taking the maximum level of effort possible. And Jaylen even said it at a practice a month or two ago. Scoring is harder than ever for him right now. And that, we had a big conversation about him earlier. All the more credit to him that he's doing what he's doing right now, because it is maximum effort, maximum physicality, maximum minutes, all of the above here. It is just a massive load that the key guys are shouldering every single night to get to this point. And that point is just 15-9. So can that continue for 60 more games here? I think it's fair to ask the question. I'm not saying one way or another. That's just the two concerns that I have here.
No, it's a legit question because it's really one of those things that there's no clear-cut definitive yay or nay on that. And when you look at just the way this team is playing and the fact that so many guys are contributing they're just, for the most part, they're just playing harder than most of their opponents. At some point, that effort you're going to have a harder time kind of priming that effort on certain nights than you on others. And how will they respond to that? Will they struggle?
Nickname talk in the chat. Trying to figure out the Walsh nickname still.
Yeah, that's when you know you're doing something good in life, when folks are trying to come up with a new name for you.
Do you have a preference?
I don't. I mean, I'm not big on the garbage man either. I think for Jordan, it's just I'm not feeling that one.
Alcatraz
was it. That was on the broadcast today. That one, that's not bad.
The Warden. I like Walsh Island.
Walsh
this is
Island
crazy.
I can get behind.
If he can become one of the best defenders in the league, he'll be deserving of that nickname. And that was crazy. I said it on the show after last night, and you can go listen to it over on the CLNS media channel, CLNS Press Pass, where we're putting all the press conferences now. Austin Reeves, after last game, said he thinks, and this is a guy who's scoring 30 points per game to begin this season. Reeves, when I asked him about Walsh and the effort that he made on him the other night, said he feels like Walsh could become one of the best defenders in the league for years to come. Harden even was willing to show him some praise for the effort he made against him. Ty Lue on that night said that they were expecting Walsh's defensive impact after what he did to Tyrese Maxey the previous week. So it feels like, you said that he's getting on the scouting report, Sherrod. It feels like players, coaches are starting to respect what he's capable of on that end either. JJ Redick came into the game saying, yeah, we know Walsh is going to be on Reeves tonight. That's just expected going in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, he's doing it the way you're supposed to do it. And that is, I don't think he raise his hand and say, "Oh, can I guard the best player on offense? Please let me do it." It was more like Joe. It was more Joe said, "Okay, you're going to guard Harden. You're going to guard Reeves." And
the
Jordan,
numbers are so good against these guys. It's unbelievable.
yeah. And I give Jordan a lot of credit, not only for how he's handled those assignments when given, but just the fact that he didn't flinch, he didn't blink. The Walshinator.
Some of these are rough.
Wallshank redemption. I like that one. I like that one. But he's doing the things that you're supposed to do that, frankly, I just don't think enough young people in the league want to do, and that is the dirty work. Just
Wall
do
Street. Not bad.
It's not bad. He's been good. I mean, Walsh, he's been really, really, really good for so many reasons. And the biggest thing I worry about with him is just elevating his game. Understanding that adjustments are going to have to be made. He's going to have to be better at everything he does. And he's going to have to add a couple things to the mix that he may not be doing now, because that's what the really good and the really great players do. They add on their skill set. Remember, Jaylen Brown was a guy that, early on in his career was mainly used defensively because of his athleticism. And now, he's a 30-point per game scorer basically in the league. And he still does things good defensively.
Someone corrected in here. It's not Jordan the Warden Walsh. It's just Warden Walsh. I get that a little more now. That might be the one at the moment among the chat ones that I've seen. I'm not crazy about Alcatraz. And then obviously Garbage Man. What did Jaylen come up with? Garbage? That's so Jaylen to throw that on
Derek
Walsh.
White? Derek White or
Derek
Jaylen?
White.
Yeah.
Either one of them. I mean, both those guys. Of course, that's the nickname that they gave Walsh, who even into his third year, it still feels like they treat him like a rookie a little bit, all the way up to forgetting to put him on the Jumbotron when he moved into the starting lineup for the first time.
That was bad.
But I love his confidence, man. This is a guy who I was a fan of since they drafted him. And if you look back at his story, had to come off the bench in college. He was a 5-star recruit to Arkansas. Didn't work out that year, so he ends up in the second round. But this team really liked him. And even though they traded back a couple of times, people weren't thrilled about that on that draft night. This is a guy that they liked, and they ended up with and developed and played through Maine and all the different things that they did to get him to this point. Make it super satisfying to see that, one, he's still here after that wasn't necessarily guaranteed, and two, that he's starting to flourish. And even though there'll probably be some ups and downs, as you mentioned, him getting on scouting reports, all the rest here, fouls out of this game, a little bit of a down performance compared to the last couple, I still like what he's doing in the minutes that he's on the court. And it feels like you can start to expect those rather than go, whoa, this is awesome that you're getting this. It's like, no, this is what you have to do night in and night out. And that's what we'll see develop over the coming weeks here. Another super chat. We got one here from Bleed Green 1905 with his nicknames, Wallpaper Walsh, because he sticks to people, and Aquaman Brown because of his pool training and ability to take defenders in the deep. I think Jaylen. Does Jaylen need a nickname? I don't know. I guess he just says JB. I don't think he has much of a nickname. Gravedigger, I think he tried with the celebration there. So appreciate that. Super chats, always appreciated. Go to the hosts of the show here. And Better Than Your Team says, with Tatum, they could go to the finals. East is too weak. As we have that big picture conversation, Sherrod, you do have to start to think about Tatum and how he could get involved with this. We're obviously a long way away from even the conversation about whether that could happen or not. But when you start to think about, all right, where's this team going to be at entering the playoffs? Who are they going to have? It is feasible that Tatum could be available to start a playoff series. Now, if those are going to be the first games he plays coming back from the Achilles injury, that's where I've said, all right, maybe you hold him out of this environment, or at least play him in a very limited role in that environment as part of this big rotation with a bunch of guys coming in and out of games. I mean, Jimmy was very upset, Sherrod, but I said, I think John too, it's more than feasible that he could be coming off the bench for this team when he comes back, just to ease him in.
I mean, in theory, yeah, but reality, hell no. I can't see it.
You think he'll jump right back into the starting lineup?
I think you put him right back in the starting lineup, and then you have him on a minutes restriction early on until you get to the point where you feel that it's no longer something you need to worry about. And I mentioned minute restriction with my gut telling me he's not going to have a definitive minutes restriction. They're just going to try to keep him in 30 or less, which is not that far away from what he typically plays anyway.
That's tough in a playoff environment, though, where you're trying to go all out. You're trying to win every game. I mean, you'll do what you need to do with him, but you would like for him to come back a little before the playoffs so you can start to feel out what that looks like, what that feels like. And obviously, the playoff environment, there's no easing into it. It's all out, full go for everybody involved. So it's going to be an interesting conversation as that approaches. There was always this debate of, oh, if they're in the mix, he'll come back. If they're out of it, he'll probably wait till next year. Now that they're in the mix, doesn't feel like that's going to be what determines it here. It's going to be the health, and we'll continue to keep an eye on him. Yeah, for sure. We'll take a look at some more chats here before we get on to another topic or two. The Celtics beat the Raptors 121-113. A big issue in the third quarter, Sherrod, with the 23-4 run that stormed the Raptors back into this, gave them a 3-point lead at the start of the fourth. But an awesome answer in the fourth quarter, and it was Derek White, who, if we're looking at the quarter by quarter here, in the fourth, White ends up with 3 of 7 shooting, 2 of 5 from 3, 8 of the Celtics' 24 points. Jaylen Brown adds another 4 with 6 free throws down the stretch of this game. Walsh fouls out after playing the first 9 minutes of the frame. Hauser closes it out. But it was White and Brown who slammed the door on this game, which was great to see.
Yeah, especially Derek White, who, we've talked ad nauseum about just some of the struggles he's had this year. He's looking very much like the guy that many of us anticipated seeing this year. And that is someone who can basically build off of a lot of the really good things that he has done up to this point. Derek White is a really, really good player. Certainly one of the better all-around players you'll find when you talk about scoring, rebounding, defending, passing, making his teammates better, being a help side defender. He does a little bit of everything and anything for these guys. And he's starting to look more and more like that guy. And that, to me, is why this ascension that we see the Celtics are on should have most teams in the league, or particularly in the Eastern Conference, a little bit worried about Boston. Because if Derek White is playing Derek White basketball and Jaylen Brown consistently does what he does, and same thing with Peyton Pritchard, throw in a couple guys who fill in some of the gaps, like a Jordan Walsh, like a Minot, like a Anthony Simons, you got a team that's going to give you trouble. You got a team that is going to make it very difficult in a best of 7, for example, for you to go on. And then the wild card of all wild cards, Jason Tatum, all bets are off then. Because if this team can finish maybe in the top 3, top 4 without Jason Tatum, even if he comes back and he's at maybe 65, 70, 75% of what he normally is, that's going to be good enough to win games in the playoffs. Will it win a championship? Probably not, but it's good enough to certainly stack up a few W's in the postseason. And that once you start doing that, then anything can happen from there. So these are some interesting times for the Celtics.
Yeah, and the one missing piece you were talking about was White, who struggled to begin this year, got back on his feet, got rolling here, and now looks like himself again. I think 2-3 games into this tear that he's on here over the last 4, really the last 6, he started turning it around from the field. He looks like the Derek White from a year ago, so chalk it up to some poor shooting to begin the year, adjusting to a new role, whatever you want to there. They gave him a night off against Cleveland, obviously. Maybe that helped to some degree. Was dealing with some bumps and bruises. I don't know what it was, but he's starting to find that rhythm, that consistency from the field. It still looks hard for him, the way he has to play, the shots he has to take. There was one completely off balance one in the second half where he airballed it, and the Celtics were able to grab that rebound and I believe got some points out of that possession. But 27, 5, 4 with 3 blocks, and there were some nice blocks in that first half, defending around the rim. He was huge in this game. He was the reason they won this game more than any other. So I'm absolutely thrilled with where he's at right now. Feels like his confidence building. We talked to him about that in Washington. Said, he hasn't always handled things the best body language wise, dealing with struggles, having his head down after misses. It was building on him a little bit, but they were able to get him out of it. And you knew he wasn't going to play like that all season. And for them to be the best version of themselves, you have to have this Derek White. So great win north of the border here for the Celtics. Awesome stuff. They move on to Milwaukee on Thursday, where they will see a Bucks team without Giannis, which could go one of 2 ways. We were saying last after the Lakers game, Sherrod, you didn't see Luka, LeBron, or Marcus in that game, and that was an environment with the last couple Celtics teams where you'd see letdowns. You'd be like, the way to beat the Celtics is to sit out all your starters because you're going to get the worst version of Boston in those scenarios. But that hasn't been the case at all this year. What have their slip-ups been? Utah, Brooklyn.
Brooklyn.
It's been the bad teams that have caught them slipping in a couple of spots. The best teams with key players out and some of the marquee matchups here, aside from that Knicks one early, I guess, they've been up for the challenge and they've been competitive in those games. And there hasn't been any difference between the Celtics against the team with everybody involved and the bright lights on and the ones who are resting and on back-to-backs or whatever things you might take advantage of. Even this game in Toronto, Sherrod, me and my producer Amit were talking about it. Like that can be a trap game going up there the night before and having that full night off to go out and do your thing out in the city there. It's a fun city. I did not see any signs of extracurricular activities here tonight. This was a full, normal, rested, I'll assume, Celtics effort.
Yeah, this was very businesslike what they did today. You play a team that's on the same level as you in many ways in their building. You tune all that out and just find ways to win. Just do what you need to do to win. And that's what they did from the opening tip-off to the final horn. Just did all those little things to position themselves for a really, really impressive win. One that certainly at the end of the season may not seem like that big a deal, but I think this is one of those games where if they make a run towards, let's say, finish in the top 2 or 3, this is going to be one of those games that's going to be seen as almost like a catalyst of sorts to that type of surge.
Yep, and I'm sure we'll talk about it on Thursday. We'll have a more full crew back, I believe, for that one as the Celtics take on the Bucks at 8 o'clock. But obviously, there is the report over the last week here that Giannis, who is out for 4 weeks now, so we're not going to see him anytime soon, at the very least 4 weeks after that scary injury. And thank God it wasn't something worse than a calf strain, which is what he's been diagnosed with here. But he and the Bucks are going to continue to talk across this next month here and even beyond up to the trade deadline about his future in Milwaukee. And it seems like they're going to work with him on what he wants to do, where he wants to go, if he decides ultimately here that he wants to move on from the Bucks, who have struggled immensely again to begin this year. 7-game losing streak, their worst since he started playing for them in 2014, Giannis. So where are you at on his next team here? If it's going to happen this year, this summer, maybe? Does he finish out the year with the Bucks? And that Milwaukee team, can they get back on their feet at this point and go on a little bit of a run here? Is this thing all but over with Giannis there?
Well, the good thing about the Eastern Conference this year particularly is that it's not over. Teams that are in 10th, 11th, 12th now could easily be in the top 4, top 5, before we get to like Easter. So there's definite potential for Milwaukee to get back in it, but I don't think they will. And I just think that there's a little bit too many hurt feelings between the Bucks and Giannis's camp to where an amicable parting is, I think, in the best interest of everyone. And for Milwaukee, you're going to want a combination of young, up-and-coming, on-the-rise talent and draft picks. And you can't say the word draft picks and not think about the Oklahoma City Thunder. That's a team that, again, I would not be surprised if that winds up being where he's sent to. There will be a lot of people that will scream foul, foul, foul. But hopefully Milwaukee will be a little bit smarter than the Lakers were and actually make a deal that gives you a king's ransom in return because you're giving away a king.
Well, it's amazing the fact that, one, they can do that. Like if they decided today they wanted to make that move, Sherrod, they have everything in their arsenal to do it. Which is
they've
crazy.
got young players, they've got assets, they've got their own picks, they've got other teams' picks. They are basically they're running the board. They run the board.
Pick right now, which is 4th in the lottery as we speak right now.
Exactly.
Which is unreal.
Right. And if you're a team like Milwaukee, if you're going to part way with a guy like Giannis, you want to give yourselves not only as many opportunities, but you want to get yourself some solidification near the top of the draft outside of your own pick. And so you're telling me that, if Milwaukee winds up with, let's say, the number 2, number 3 pick, and they have a pick that they're going to be getting from OKC, which would be number 4, let's say, through by way of trades, having 2 of the top 3, top 4 picks, that can jumpstart your rebuild quick. So
absolutely. Should the Celtics have any interest in this? Should they even pick up the phone?
I think you have to, just from a simple courtesy standpoint. And whenever there's talk about one of the best players of the game being available, even if you have no interest in him, you at least owe it to yourself to hear what they have to say. And if there's specific things that they're looking for, you look at your inventory and then you ask yourself, am I willing to part with this guy? Am I willing to part with that guy? Do I really want to give them 3 future first-round picks, all unprotected? Those are some of the things that you have to give some thought to. But I anticipate that he will wind up in the Western Conference in some way, shape, or form. I really do.
Yeah, I think the Knicks are intriguing. Noah and I did a video about it. She brought them up. I think they were a good team. And then, where I actually think he's going to end up if the time comes, Sherrod?
Where?
Atlanta.
Oh, I can see that.
I think the Hawks are poised to make a move like that. And that might not be his preferred destination necessarily, but are they going to keep doing this Trae Young thing? If they are, I think you need a guy like that next to Trae. That they would be a compelling combination potentially if Giannis was willing to play off ball a little bit more. That would obviously be the key there. But they have a super intriguing team that is playing well through Porzingis' illness and all the rest going on down there. They have the Bucks pick this year from the New Orleans trade with DeJounte Murray, and then the Derek Queen one that happened after that. So they could get their own pick back, as well as future ones from Atlanta. Atlanta owns all those New Orleans picks into the future from the DeJounte Murray trade as well. So they are well poised to make a compelling offer themselves, go all in on what's already an intriguing young team down there in Atlanta. I mean, Jaylen Johnson, if you're not seeing what he's doing night in and night out right now.
Legit. He's legit.
That's another team will be interesting to see the Celtics against too. They've given the Celtics fits over the years, but this is another win off the board. First time they're seeing this team this year in Toronto. They'll see them again in short order later this month, north of the border again. But this is a good win, and they've now beat the Raptors in 12 of their last 13 games. Against them.
It's crazy how they dominate.
Yeah, probably going back to the days where I was a Raptors fan in the bubble and with Kyle Lowry and all the Siakam, OG, a lot of different guys up there who have been fun to watch. It's a different looking group, but they're getting back on their feet. They've had a good start to this season, so I love them. And shout out to all my fans and friends up in Toronto who wish I was up there tonight, but. Instead, we got a good remote show in here. Shout out to our sponsor, PrizePicks. Download the app, use the code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup over there. And I'll shout out again, as we've said here often throughout this month. So you should already know and have made this move over to the CLNS media channel. But for those of you, and I see a number of you over on Celtics All Access watching this, head on over to CLNS media because that'll be where you find the Garden Report exclusively from now on. We've been playing it on both channels forever, live after every game. Soon, it'll be live on CLNS Media only. So subscribe over there. Get a lot of good stuff on that channel, including post-game reaction, live from these games and our coverage on the ground here for CLNS Media. But if you are subscribed to Celtics All Access, still a lot of good stuff over there. Noah and I did a video on the Celtics potential to win the East, to become one of the best teams in the East after that Lakers game. So still a lot of good stuff over there, along with our many Celtics pods, many NBA pods that come out almost daily here on the network. So subscribe to both channels and you'll get everything you need. Subscribe to Noah's pod. She wasn't here tonight, but I'm sure she'll be podcasting about this one. You Got Boston. And subscribe to the Big Three podcast as well with Sherrod, Kwani, and Gary Washburn, who I don't think was in Toronto tonight. I think he stayed home as well. So I'm sure you guys will be podcasting about this one soon. You said you got one coming up on the Pistons?
Yeah, it'll be coming up in the next day or so. Talk with Cody M. Davis of the Detroit News about just the Pistons and what seems like this unexpected ascension towards the top of the Eastern Conference standings. But we get into it's not quite as big a shock to them. And he gives some pretty compelling reasons as to why that's true. And he gets into how their success has changed their outlook to where they're big game hunting in a way now that I don't think they were planning to be big game hunting.
I've heard some Anthony Davis buzz there, maybe. I don't know.
We get into that conversation a little bit. So definitely check that out. That'll be dropping within the next day or so.
Well, I didn't know it was going to be a Syracuse stream. so I didn't get in my sweatshirt here, but luckily it was within arm's reach here.
It's always
Always
within arm's reach. We're either rocking it or we got something within arm's reach. If I didn't have the sweatshirt on, I can just tell you where my money is always going to be on the orange, and that's where my money goes. So
yeah, Sunday, whenever the Lakers game was, Dave McMiniman was in the house. He was all excited about this year's basketball team.
Yeah.
Talking me up because I was bummed after that Las Vegas tournament where they lost all 3 games. They were competitive, but they lost all 3 games. So it was nice to see them beat Tennessee. You got Kyan Anthony on the court. Melo's at pretty much all the games watching his son play. And then some other NBA level prospects on that roster as well. It's a fun team. It's a talented team. Feel like they're going to be back in the tournament this year. And can't even remember now the last time that they were in the tournament. So after that awful football season, I'm hoping that we actually get a fun winter up in Syracuse, New York. I'll be up there at some point for a game because you got to see Kyan, man. Isn't it crazy? That must be like mind-blowing for you that he is now playing for the Orange.
It's crazy. It's just it's hard to put it into words because I mean you think about that kind of stuff. It might happen, but when it actually happens, you're like, oh wow, this is like super super cool.
And he's not just on the team, walk on, whatever, there for the name. He's actually a real player, and he's had his ups and downs to start his freshman year, but he's a guy that you can hope might be there for a couple of years with where he's at positionally on that team. So we'll see what happens. I'm excited about them. Feels like the ball is rolling for them again after that Tennessee win. They stormed the court, and good times are happening again for Syracuse basketball, I hope. But he is a Sherrod Blakely. Check out the Big 3 podcast here on CLNS Media. I'll have some more content to begin this week podcasting because the Celtics do not practice until Wednesday, right before they head out to Milwaukee. So we'll have practice coverage later this week. But in the meantime, a lot of podcasts coming your way, a lot of videos coming out about the start of the season, where the Celtics are at. Check out clnsmedia.com, where I wrote about Jaylen Brown's MVP case as it starts to develop now. We talked a lot about that tonight. And that's it for us here tonight. For Sherrod Blakely, I'm Bobby Manning. Celtics beat the Raptors. They have now won 5 straight games and are in sole possession of 3rd place in the East. We will talk to you on Thursday, post-game after Celtics Bucks at 8 o'clock. Peace. Have a good night and have a good week.